we've had a couple of trips recently to the Kennedy Space Center, one in December and one in January. And a lot of the pictures you're going to be seeing today are our own personal pictures and video. Wherever copied from somebody, you'll see we give credit to wherever we got the picture from. So couple of things I want to note on this slide that we'll cover later before we move on to the slide, and just a couple of little things we'll be talking about. You guys see every time there's a liftoff, there's a lot of white smoke coming out of the rock. We'll talk about what that white smoke is. It's not always just from the flames. And also another thing we'll discuss is, if you notice on Artemis and Apollo, the tips. We'll talk about what those are. Unfortunately, the shuttle didn't have that, and if they did, it might have saved the Challenger astronauts. But we can talk about that a little bit. Okay, let's move on. All right, so here's what we're going to be covering. These are general topics. We have a lot of slides in between. We're going to hit you up with information overload. Hopefully, it's a lot of stuff that you don't know. But we're going to talk about the introduction to the Kennedy Space Center, what a day at the Visitor Center looks like, and then get into the tours. You see a lot of interesting stuff on the tours, and we'll get into some of the missions: Artemis, Apollo, Space Shuttle, and then we can ask the questions. But before we get into the meat of this, I figured since today's Friday the 13th, I would ask a question of the group. Why do you think Friday the 13th is unlucky? Because what's that? Wow, he knows it very good. Okay, so the first reason why it's unlucky, or some people think it's unlucky, in Christianity, in the Last Supper, Judas was the 13th guest to arrive at the Last Supper. So obviously we know what happened after Judas arrived. Then in Norse mythology, you have Loki, who is the god of mischief. He was the 13th guest to arrive at a dinner party and created all sorts of chaos. So again, 13. But one that's most widely known is on Friday, October 13th, 1307. The Knights Templar, which was a religious organization, were all arrested by the King of France and later executed. So that's why one of the reasons why Friday the 13th is unlucky. Now, some people have a phobia of Friday the 13th.
There's another reason.
Yes.
There's another reason?
Yeah, and it's the original reason.
What is it?
The cycle of the moon does not go evenly into the cycle of the sun. So there are 12 and a third months every year. So we celebrate 12 months, but you're a third off. And then you celebrate the next year 12 months, and you're another third off. So now you're 2/3 of a month off. And then the third year you celebrate 12 months. And now you're 3/3 of a month off. So you got to put in an extra month. So that year there's 13 months. And various different ways were originated for how to call it. But the Babylonians knew this, 1500 BCE. And so the people who were in charge of the calendar, which were the priests and the astronomers, were in charge of setting the various holidays within the year. If a year divides into 4 quarters, it's really easy. And so they'd have an easy year, and then there's the year with 13 months in it, and it doesn't have a half, it doesn't have a quarter. Where are you going to put these various holidays? So they knew, and they talked about how 13 is such an unlucky number, you can't schedule it. So it's been unlucky since 1000 BCE.
Well, actually, also the Christians thought Jesus was put to death on the 13th.
These are just a few examples. Obviously, there's a lot more. But as you see with the last bullet point there, and as somebody said in the audience here, it is sometimes diagnosed as frigatriska phobia. I can't even pronounce it myself. But you see, you come to an astronomy presentation and you wind up learning about all sorts of other stuff. So you never know. Okay. All right. So I know this slide is a little bit of an eye chart, but this is the only one that's an eye chart. But I thought it was important to cover some of the facts around the Kennedy Space Center. It was named in 1963, obviously to honor President John F. Kennedy. It was previously known as Launch Operations Center for space exploration. It covers 219 square miles, 144,000 acres. It's larger than San Francisco. But NASA only uses approximately 8,000 acres. The remaining 95% is an island called Merritt Island, which is a national wildlife refuge. So NASA actually only uses just a little bit of the grounds. It's home, obviously, to the iconic Launch Complex 39, which you'll be seeing in a subsequent slide, used for Apollo, Space Shuttle, and now Artemis. We'll see the Vehicle Assembly Building, which is the fourth largest building by volume. It's the largest single-story building around, and sometimes it has its own weather system. It's so tall. On humid days, they say they actually build some clouds up in the upper levels of the Vehicle Assembly Building. But we'll see some pictures of that. And it's adjacent to the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Now, a lot of people usually confuse. They think that NASA is Cape Canaveral. There are two different islands. They are side by side. So Cape Canaveral is actually the Space Force Station, and the Space Force Station is 16,000 acres, and it's got 4 active launch pads that are used for Space Force activities. But actually, SpaceX actually uses one of them for some of their launches, Launch Pad 40. Some of the major events that have happened there: the first Saturn V rocket launched, obviously in '67, and then followed by Apollo, Space Shuttle, and the Artemis missions. As I mentioned, the KSC borders a national wildlife refuge with over 1,500 species of animals. Alice will go over some of the species that are there in a subsequent slide. And then it's got a visitor complex, which is what we're going to be seeing today, originally called the Spaceport USA. And it's got a lot of neat exhibits as what we see. And it's got its own sustainability system in that it uses a solar farm capable of powering thousands of homes, and the lighting is turtle friendly. So just some overall facts. We'll be seeing a lot of this stuff as we get through some of the slides. So since this is an astronomy club, I figured I'd add a requisite telescope rather than all the other space stuff. The Kennedy Space Center has a copy, a real-life copy of the Hubble telescope. It's actually located in the Atlantis building. They have it hanging from the ceiling, so it's kind of cool. But for astronomy purposes, obviously, the Kennedy Space Center matters because they've launched a lot of space telescopes that have been out there. They're certainly launching Apollo and Artemis, which leads to astronomical frontiers and certainly other observations. And it also launches satellites for exoplanet search, like Kepler and TESS, which has found many exoplanets. And then in the future, Artemis certainly going to the moon and possibly the Mars missions, and it's going to be launching the Nancy Grace Roman telescope in a short while. So I figured I'd add a telescope since this is an astronomy. The next slide. All right, so let's get into the Kennedy Space Center now. It's a centrally located facility. If you see there, it's right almost in the middle of Florida, right on the coast. Centrally located. It's about 50 minutes from Orlando, 2 hours from Tampa, 2 hours from Jacksonville, 3 hours from Miami. So you can get there easily from pretty much any location in Florida. From Orlando, it's a pretty straight run straight into the Kennedy Space Center, and this is the final ride over the Indian River. It's a long causeway to get to the Kennedy Space Center, but it's a beautiful view because you can see the vehicle assembly building and you can see some of the launch towers. What it is as you're driving in, on the left-hand side is Titusville, and Titusville is where you see on TV a lot of times when they have liftoff of some rockets. Titusville is where everybody hangs out on the beach with their cameras to take video of the launch. So that happens to the left over here across the Indian River. As you can see, it's got awesome views. So we've now gone through the causeway. We've gone through the past the Indian River. This is what we see before you go in. Quite an amazing view to see the space shuttle solid rocket boosters. You can see that from pretty much anywhere in Kennedy Space Center, and then you can see some of the other things at the beginning. So you normally make a left and go into the parking lot. So that's what we're going to do. But before we go into there, on the right-hand side, before you make the left, Blue Origin has built a big facility over right across the street from the Kennedy Space Center. That's where they're building all their rockets. And when we were there a couple of weeks ago, they were actually starting to fuel up one of their tankers that'll be used for the Glenn missions that are upcoming. And SpaceX actually has a facility inside of the Kennedy Space Center near the vehicle assembly building. They have existing stuff out by one of the launch pads, but they're actually building a spaceship, a Starbase facility here to be able to build their heavy rockets, and that's still under construction. But that's their hope, that they're going to be using Kennedy Space Center for their heavy rocket. So those are the other two facilities that are outside the Kennedy Space Center. So if you're ever wondering to get in to Kennedy Space Center, here's some of the admission passes. The one in the 2-day adult. I really recommend a 2-day pass because it's hard to see everything just in one day, as you'll see when we go through it. And we're actually annual pass holders, so we just go there all the time whenever we get a chance. I even go there when I'm on a business trip. I just take a quick ride over from Tampa or Orlando, and they always have something new going on. So this is the entrance after we've gone through the parking lot. You can see here at the front of the entrance, you see a rocket garden. We'll get into that in a minute. And then we've gone through the gates, and I'll talk about some of the lower fidelity attractions because we're going to really get into the big important attractions. But they have a lot of stuff in the initial courtyard. Some of the stuff gets so crowded and is so popular that you got to make the reservations in advance. Journey to Mars is a 3D show that they change up every so often. The ATX astronaut experience is actually an experience for young kids. It's a full day experience that kids can sign up. You have to sign up for that in advance. and it teaches them a lot about space and space travel. Then there's an IMAX theater, which is very popular. IMAX theater also has a game on throwing moon rocks. Both of those are very popular and sell out quickly. So you have to make the reservation either the night before or first thing when you get there. Then we have a universe theater, again showing some movies. On this day, they were showing Fragile Rock, basically different rocks from that have landed on Earth. When you're hungry, you can go to the Orbit Cafe. That's the main cafe there. I recommend the Apollo 11 burger. It's pretty good. And you can't go wrong with the Milky Way ice cream shop and have the Artemis dots, the ice cream dots. That was pretty good as well. And for your shopping pleasure, they have the world's largest space shop. This space shop is huge. The entrance doesn't do it any favors. It's actually a two-story facility, and it has all sorts of space memorabilia, stuff to buy from Mercury to Apollo to Space Shuttle to Artemis. And as you can see, I'm wearing something that I got. Sorry, Kathy. I feel like I'm cheating on you wearing something that I didn't buy you. So apologies. So I mentioned when you first walk in, over to the left-hand side is they call it the Rocket Garden. They have tours of the Rocket Garden every hour or so. But if you go to the next slide, it actually has rockets that were used on some very early missions, and these were the actual rockets that were used. Like for Mercury Redstone, it's got the first rocket that was used by Alan Shepard in 1961. It's got the Mercury Atlas rocket that was used by John Glenn. So everything in that rocket garden is actually rockets that were actually used, and then some of the earlier ones from Gemini and Juno and Delta. So Rocket Garden is very interesting, and the folks that give the tours are very informative of the Rocket Garden. All right, so let's get into the tours. The tours is where it really gets fascinating. The admission package to get when you get into the Kennedy Space Center includes a general bus tour. Now, I recommend that you pay up and get the Explore tour. It's only $30 extra, and I'll show you why the Explore tour is much better. You go to a couple of different places that the general bus tour does not. So the general bus tour is a guided tour, and we'll go through where it goes. It takes you to some historic areas, and you get to wind up in the Saturn V rocket and exhibits. Every tour actually winds up there. But the KSC Explore tour takes you to a few more locations, two more locations that you'll see later on when we get through. You can also pay up to what they call fly with an astronaut. You don't really fly with the astronaut. You get to have lunch with the astronaut. The astronaut gets to give you a tour around. They actually tour you around the facilities, and you can just pretty much spend the day with them. By the way, every day they have a different astronaut. Actually, every 3 days they change an astronaut out, but most of the time it's obviously shuttle astronauts. But when we were there a few years back, they actually had some of the living Apollo astronauts back when they were alive, but not many of them are alive anymore. The last one we saw was Al Worden, the command module pilot for Apollo 15, and he was a cool guy. And lastly, they have another tour of behind the gates, the mission zone, That one's like $250, and it takes you to more access. But I don't think it's any better than just the Explorer tour. So let's go. Let's go on the tour. The first stop on all the tours is a stop at the gantry at Launch Center 39. Launch Center 39 because it's near the two 39 pads, A and B. All tours stop here. This is a 4-story observation deck. You can either walk or take the elevator up from the ground floor, and you'll see some pictures that we've taken from up there. 360-degree views, and it features this full scale. This is a full scale Apollo era rocket engine that actually performs a simulated fire, like you'll see in a minute. So here it is at gantry at LC 39. So we're going to play the video for a second. You guys online might not be able to hear the sound, but it actually makes some sound. It actually moves. The rocket moves, and it starts to throw smoke and spray the kids down below here. All the kids will start congregating, and when it gets too heavy, they'll run away. You guys got the gist. It goes for a little bit. So now I'm on the 4th floor of LC 39. As I mentioned, it's a 360-degree view. If I look to the right, that is Cape Canaveral, the Space Force station. You can see some of the Space Force launch pads out there. The tours do not take you there. Obviously, it's a restricted area. Over to the left, we see the iconic launch pad 39A, which is now leased to SpaceX for 20 years. So SpaceX will be using that launch pad. We'll talk about a little bit more about launch pad 39A and B. Here is launch pad 39B. That is where Artemis will take off from. This was taken in December, so Artemis was not there yet. And going back the other way, you see the vehicle assembly building. You see it. Some of the doors partly open. That was Artemis in there still in December. And outside here, you see mobile launcher number 2. Mobile launcher number 1 is actually what is carrying Artemis inside the vehicle assembly building. We'll keep an eye and discuss mobile launcher 2 later on in the slide. So that was the first stop where every bus tour stops. This next stop is only exclusive to the Explorer tour. Remember, the Explorer tour I mentioned is $30 extra, but it's well worth it. It takes you within a mile of both Launchpad 39A, 39B, and this is the observation deck up there. And normally, when they're having a liftoff of a mission, this is where all the television crews set up their cameras. It's about a mile and a half from the pads. SpaceX has a permanent camera there that you see on the right. That white dome that you see there, that's a SpaceX permanent camera. But as you can see, everybody's walking up towards the observation area, and it's like I said, it's halfway between pads 39A and 39B, about 1 mile from the launch pads. So here's an iconic launch pad 39A. This is the most iconic launch pad to date. This is where all of the Apollo missions took off from, except for Apollo 10. Apollo 10 took off from 39B, which is on the other side. They just wanted to test 39B in case they needed to use it for an emergency launch. But all the Apollo missions took off from 39A, and then after that, 39A and 39B pretty much alternated. They all alternated space shuttle missions, about each one taking half. And now SpaceX is using it for their Falcon 9 rockets and their Falcon heavy rockets. You can see there, this is a fixed tower as opposed to 39B, which you'll see in a minute. It's got a lightning tower and the water tower, which we'll talk about in a minute. The water tower. Yeah, and you guys see here these lines going there. Both towers have that. We'll get into that a little bit later. Those are actually escape zip lines in case something's happening on the launch pad and you need to evacuate the astronauts. So that would the astronauts would go from the area here, which is connected to the shuttle or whatever rocket, and then they would just zip line down to an awaiting vehicle. You'll see the awaiting vehicle in a future slide. Like I said, this is now operated by SpaceX. Launchpad 39B is what's going to be used for Artemis. Obviously, it was used also in the 60s for Saturn V rockets and the moon program, mostly Apollo 10. After that, it was modified for 39B was modified for the space shuttle and the first space shuttle STS-1 with John Young and Crippen took off from 39B. Today, it's dedicated to the Space Launch System, which is obviously the Artemis program, which will take humans to the moon and beyond. And this is considered a clean pad because, as you see, there is no structure there. Like you saw on 39A, there was an actual structure, which is a tower. This is a clean pad. The tower comes with the space launch vehicle on the mobile platform. So that's where the tower comes in. There isn't a tower there. But a couple of things on this tower on this pad that you'll see. You see these two things over here. That's a liquid hydrogen tank and a liquid oxygen tank. So that's what feeds the rocket when it's here. Also, this huge water tower right next to the pad. If you guys remember on the first slide, I mentioned when the rockets take off, you see all that white smoke. What you don't see a lot on the liftoffs is that at the same time the rocket ignites, this water tower feeds the launch tower with 450,000 gallons of water, and that's done for a couple of things to actually reduce the vibration on the tower. The water actually helps reduce the vibration from the flame, and also to reduce the sound coming from the rocket. And that's released by these hoses that are near the launch pad. They're called rainbirds. So the white smoke that you see is actual vapors is actually steam from the water, from the fire hitting the water causes the steam. So it's not just necessarily smoke from the fire; it's actually caused by the water. Okay, so this device is set up in between pad 39B and 39A. Does anybody have any idea what this device is?
Is it a camera?
It's not a camera.
Checking vibration.
No. Anybody online have any idea what this device is?
Not a clue.
Okay. Let's go. Florida is the lightning capital of the U.S. And the lightning alley is between Tampa and Orlando. Apollo 12 was hit by multiple lightning strikes when it took off. This device can detect lightning a few miles away. So if this device detects lightning, they will not send up the rockets. And like I said, it's located, you can see here, 39B in the background, and 39A would be this way. So so it's kind of interesting, but actually a good thing, right? To detect launch. Did anybody know that Florida is the lightning capital of the U.S.? And now some people are saying it could be Texas, Oklahoma. So they're debating all these lightning capitals. But okay.
Those are lightning towers.
And those are lightning towers in the background. Yes, yes. Over here, those are three lightning towers over here.
An array of wires on.
Yeah.
From each tower.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so how does Artemis get, or Apollo, or the space shuttle get to the launch pads? We were lucky that on our December trip, we actually saw the crawler actually moving. They were testing the crawler. The crawler was built in '65 for the Saturn V and Saturn IB missions, and later carried the space shuttle. It weighs approximately 6 million pounds. It can carry up to 18 million pounds. The Artemis SLS rocket is 14 million pounds. So it's got 4 million pounds to go before it reaches its maximum capacity. This is crawler number 1. NASA makes everything in twos for backup. So crawler number 2 is always sitting on the side of the vehicle assembly building, but crawler number 1 is the one that they use most of the time. It's operated by 11 NASA personnel, and it moves at the lightning fast speed of 1 mile per hour. And it takes about, even though the launch pads are either 3.5 or 4.5 miles away, it takes it about 8 to 12 hours, because you'll see there's actually some curves involved in getting to the launch pads. So here it is. I mean, we were on the bus, and here we were passing the crawler, and we actually took a little video while we were on the bus, so you can play it real quick.
Walking with it. Thing is not small. Look at it. It hangs out over the road for crying out loud. This thing will pick up 18 million pounds. Why do they roll over a stony driveway? That's because when the service structure on the top of it, the vibration from the V16 diesel electric motors.
So it's kind of interesting to see it in motion. But if you go back a second, the gravel is not just any ordinary gravel. The gravel is actually stones from the Alabama River. And the reason they use those stones is because they don't have sharp edges. They're not easy to crush, and they don't spark, which is very important. So that's the crawler. So the next slide actually was from our trip in February. We actually got to see the Artemis rocket on the launch pad before they rolled it back to the vehicle assembly building. By the way, we have some late breaking news that came out yesterday on when that they're going to roll it back out, which is next Thursday. Artemis is the sister of Apollo. Obviously, Apollo went to the moon. Artemis is going to go to the moon. First moon mission since Apollo 17, and long-term goal of Artemis is to establish a base on the moon and ultimately probably to Mars. Artemis 1 took off in 2022. It was unmanned. Mannequins and robots were inside. But one of the learnings from Artemis 1 is they experienced some issues with the heat shield. So part of the test that they're doing for Artemis 2 is to test the heat shields. The problem is it's going to be with real live people. So those those astronauts are sort of guinea pigs testing out the new heat shields. So, but this was an unbelievable sight to see the Artemis rocket on Launchpad 39B. So here's the Artemis 2 mission. It's the first crewed mission to the moon. It's a 10-day flight. It's actually going to take off. They're going to do a couple of maneuvers in Earth orbit, and then they're going to do the translunar injection and send it to the moon. When they get to the moon, it will not orbit the moon like some of the other missions that in the past for Apollo. It's actually going to go a little bit farther out. So that's why it says it will take man further into deep space than ever before. So it's actually going to go out a little bit deeper, but it's going to put it on a trajectory where it's going to do what's called a free return and a slingshot. That way, in case there are any issues with the engine, problems with the rocket, they want to be able to return the astronaut safely without having problems with the astronauts, and then it's going to come back and splash down in the Pacific. So this is coming hopefully to a theater near you in April. So a couple of weeks ago, NASA changed the Artemis schedule. So 2026, the Artemis 2 mission was going to launch and circle around the far side of the moon. That is still scheduled. That is what they're hoping to be doing in 2026. In 2027, it was originally going to be the moon landing. They have postponed that. What they're going to do in 2027 is they're just going to take Artemis 3, launch it into Earth orbit, and they're going to test docking it with two of the projects that might get the moon landers. They haven't settled on a moon lander yet. Both SpaceX and Blue Moon are creating landers. I think Starship is going to beat the Blue Moon out at least for the first couple of years. So, but Artemis 3 is going to test docking in low Earth orbit and then come back to Earth. And then they're planning for 2028 launch to the moon. They're way behind on the schedule, so I personally doubt very much these will happen in 27, 28. Remember I spoke to you about the mobile launcher number 2, which was sitting outside of the vehicle assembly building. Remember, NASA makes everything in twos. So the one that Artemis is sitting on is mobile launcher 1. The one outside was being built, mobile launcher 2. NASA has scrapped mobile launcher 2. If you remember, it was almost fully assembled. So NASA just scrapped $1.6 billion by scrapping the mobile launcher 2. So that is not a good view. And like I mentioned, an update just yesterday, NASA said that they will be rolling out Artemis 2 back out to the launch pad on March 19th, which is next Thursday. and the launch window is either April 1 through 6 or April 30th. So keep an eye out for that. The next tour stop is the Vehicle Assembly Building, as I mentioned before. It's a huge building. This, again, is also only exclusive to the Explorer Tour. All the other tours just have the bus pass by the Vehicle Assembly Building, and you got to take a picture real quick. The Explorer Tour actually stops, so we took this picture actually standing out here on the grass right in front of the Vehicle Assembly Building. It's a huge, huge facility, 525 feet high, 518 wide, 17 long. It's got the world's largest American flag. The American flag is 209 feet tall, 110 feet wide. Each one of these little stripes, a tractor, if that was on the ground, a tractor trailer would actually fit in that lane. That's how big this flag is. And the NASA logo is also 12,300 square feet, which is bigger than a lot of houses. Obviously built in 1966 for the Apollo program, but it's been used since then for space shuttles. The doors over here, each one is, there's two on this side, two on the other side. They are 456 feet high, and it takes 45 minutes for the doors to open and 45 minutes for the doors to close. So they actually work in slow motion. This is a cool view. This is a NASA image. Here's the Vehicle Assembly Building. Look at the runway it's got to 39A and 39B. It's 3.5 miles to 39A, 3.5 miles, 4.5 miles to 39B, which is where Artemis is going to launch from. Remember, this one, 39A, is now SpaceX. But take a look at the crawler. Whenever it's taking some payload on it, it's going to go 1 mile an hour up this way, and it's got to make a serious left turn to go towards 39B. That's why it takes it so long. And not only do they go slow 1 mile per hour, but the drivers actually take breaks. They take a lunch. They're working pretty much all day, so it takes them a long time. And here's a picture of Artemis inside the Vehicle Assembly Building. As you can see, it's just one big floor. It just has these balconies that actually jet out into and attach to Artemis or whatever other ship is in there in order for them to do any work on there. So again, in the upper levels of the Vehicle Assembly Building, it's been known to get clouds. So I love this picture. So while that picture, the prior picture where you saw the Vehicle Assembly Building, we were standing right in front of the Vehicle Assembly Building, and we took a picture. If we turned around, they have 3 exhibits behind us, right in front of the Vehicle Assembly Building. This first one, it's the launch escape system. If you remember on the first slide, I told you about those 3 towers, those little tower things that were on top of the Apollo capsule, and on top of the Artemis capsule. This tower is attached on there, and if there's ever any problem with the rocket after launch, this will jettison with the crew cabin attached, and it jettisons so fast that the crew would probably black out, but ultimately they would still be alive. If you remember the picture of the space shuttle did not have the launch escape system. So if it would have had it, maybe the shuttle Challenger astronauts might have survived. There's a shuttle control arm and white room. So this was used in many shuttle missions where the astronauts would ride up in the elevator and go in through here. They go in. This is a white room area here, and then go into the shuttle. You can actually walk through here and walk in the same steps that 82 astronauts did, and that gets recalled back from the tower 7 minutes before launch. This is an interesting vehicle. If you remember, you saw those ripcords coming from the tower, those bungee cords, where the astronauts can escape while they're still on the launch pad. Well, what happens is once they go down that cord, this vehicle was waiting for them for the Apollo and the shuttle missions. It's called the M113. It's an armored personnel carrier. The astronauts actually were taught how to drive this. In case of an emergency, they would zip line down from the rocket into the armored vehicle, and then they'd take off. So this particular vehicle was retired in 2015. It was replaced by another vehicle called the MRAP, similar armored vehicle, more modern, but MRAP stands for Mine Resistant Ambush Protected. I don't know why in the Kennedy Space Center they would be worried about mines or being ambushed, but I don't. Okay, so now we've left the vehicle assembly building, and we wind up at the Saturn V Center. This is where every bus actually ends. It's a 100 square foot facility dedicated to the Apollo program, and we'll see some of the stuff that it has. So some outside, we went around to the far side of the building, and it has some observation areas. These are premium observation areas. I tried to get tickets for the Artemis 2 launch, and they sold out in like 15 minutes. So there's a lot of competition for it. These are prime viewing locations. As you can see, I'm actually standing on top of one of the viewing locations, and you have awesome views of the launch pads. And they only charge like $75 for the viewing, but they're very, very hard to get. So that's on the one side. On the other side, we have the Moon Tree Garden, which are sycamores made from seeds that were taken up on Apollo 14. And we have a sycamore from a space seed out here. It might be second or third generation. Second, yeah. Actually, outside of Kennedy Space Center, they have second too. They used to have first generation moon seeds, but they were wiped out on one of the hurricanes. So there are still some first generation trees that are in some of the Florida universities, and that's where they get a lot of their seeds from. And obviously, they're second generation. But there's 12 trees all around for each of the manned Apollo missions, obviously including Apollo 1. And there's a statue right in the middle of 3 Apollo 11 astronauts. So when you walk into the building, first thing you'll see is you'll get a show of the liftoff of Apollo 8, and it's a theater, and you see this firing room here. This was the actual firing room that was used in the Apollo missions, which was out by the vehicle assembly building. So it's like a 10-minute show showing all sorts of video from the Apollo 8 mission. Once you get out of that pre-show, you now walk into this huge room. It's got an actual size of the Saturn V rocket with all of its pieces. Now, NASA had made 3 additional Saturn V rockets after Apollo 17. This one would have been Apollo 18. But obviously, since there was no Apollo 18, they took it and they put it in the vehicle, Saturn V rocket. Massive facility. It goes all the way down. It goes all the way down. It shows you all the stages. As you can see, everybody walking here underneath it. And these pictures don't do it justice, but all along the side, there's a lot of interactive things you can do. There's games. There's virtual reality things that you can play with all across the side over here. And it's got some really neat items. It's got Alan Shepard's spacesuit from Apollo 14. You can't see it very well, but it is very dirty from all the moon dust that kicked out on his uniform. This is the actual space capsule for Apollo 14. Anybody remember the name for the Apollo 14 capsule? It was Kitty Hawk. So that's the actual capsule. They actually have a lot of moon rocks. Some are actually inside display cases. They do have one display where you can actually stick your finger in and actually touch the moon rock. They have a facsimile of the rover and an actual facsimile of the lunar lander. So, a question we get a lot is, how do astronauts go to the bathroom when they're in space? Here's a space shuttle toilet. Now they put these out. They put these out at the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Center near each of the bathrooms, and a lot of times you pass by and you have people trying them out actually outside of the restrooms. So it's not such a such a pretty sight to see. But if you can see here, this is where you go for number 2, where they sit down and go for number 2, and this is for the males to do number 1. It is actually a vacuum tube for number 1.
Was it designed by Howard Wolowitz?
And actually, the number two space is like really small because it has to fit just right, because if it doesn't, you don't want leakage stuff up in space where stuff starts leaking. And they've had a couple of accidents, and actually an interesting fact, before these started obviously with the space shuttle. In the Apollo missions, they didn't have toilets. The astronauts would actually tape paper, plastic bags onto their bodies, and then when they were done with it, they take the tape away. They wrap up the plastic bag and put a new bag on. And actually, there are 96 bags of human waste that were left on the moon. And NASA wants those back. Believe it or not, they want those back because they want to see if the bacteria survived after being on the moon for 50 plus years. So amazing. NASA wants human waste back. But okay. So now we're done with the main tour, and now we're going to talk about some of the wildlife that we see on the Kennedy Space Center.
So one of the best parts of going on the tour, I feel, is when you're exhausted, you've seen all this, and you've tried to take all this in, you get the nice tour back where you're exhausted laying on the bus and you go, what is that? And you see eagles' nests. They have a total of somewhere between 20 and 30 active nests right now. The original nest that they had was 50 years old. They've had generation after generation of the same eagles that keep coming back. The pair that they have right now, they are actually positive it's the same ones that come back, because they come back within 2 days every year to the same place. The one biggest nest that they had was over 1,000 pounds. The tree first died, the eagles came back. The next year, the pine beetles ate it, it still came back. And finally, it took one of the hurricanes to take out half the nest for them to finally give up on that nest. So NASA was really concerned, was this pair going to be close enough to the tour buses for the people to be able to still see? And they thought the eagles wouldn't want to see them. In reality, they moved even closer. They've gone to a utility pole, and now you can see them. And a lot of times you'll actually see them flying. They're right above the vehicle assembly building. You'll see them circling up on the top up there. So it's pretty interesting. You see a lot of alligators. Definitely you don't want to go near one of them. You mostly see them on the bus. But if you can see, there's also the turtle. When you're going up different places, you have to look. There's turtles, there's armadillos. It's really the amazing wildlife that you get to see while you're there is incredible. There's over 300 endangered species that they're working with right now. They've got over 1,500 different types of species of birds, fish, plants. It's what's really nice is to be able to see the environment being cared for at the same time technology moves forward. So it's something that's interesting to see. If you do get a chance, you definitely don't want to be sleeping on a bus on the way back. So as you can see in the background, they have the utility pole, and the views are incredible because here you're looking at all this different technology going on, and then you see this wildlife flying through it, and it just, brings everything full circle. So that was the part I just find really interesting. And then I'll let you go back to the shuttle.
And actually, NASA takes really good care of the wildlife in the area. Whenever they're having a liftoff, they make sure that there are no birds in the area. They actually make a lot of noise. They actually get the birds out. They get as many animals as they can away from the launch pads. Even the alligators, they try and get them away. So the bus tour then comes to an end, and right next to the end of the bus tour is the space shuttle Atlantis. Outside is the huge rocket booster, actual size. Then you go inside and you go through a short 10-minute viewing, and it's really sharp the way they did it. When you finish viewing with a movie, which is basically the last flight of Atlantis, which was STS-135. This is actually the end of that video segment.
Down and locked. Your touchdown. Atlantis' nose being now rotated down toward the runway. Chute being deployed. And nose gear touchdown. Space Shuttle Atlantis now comes home to the Kennedy Space Center for the final time. 25 years, 32 flights, and more than 120 million miles traveled. The legacy of Atlantis now in the history books.
Well, that just wasn't the legacy of Atlantis. That was the last shuttle mission ever. Now, once you go inside, you see the Atlantis orbiter in its orbit configuration, which is pretty amazing. That was that other. If you go back one slide, two slides, you'll see that with the bay doors open and with the Canada arm extended. So it's really sharp. It's actually on the third floor, so you can actually walk around this way and then keep walking down to different levels, and you get to see the rockets in the back. You get to see the tiles underneath. So it's really pretty amazing. But then once you get to the bottom level, there is there are a lot of exhibits for you to see. There are a lot of interactive games. I don't know who this guy is that's in the got into my picture. But there I'm sitting inside a shuttle simulator where I can actually play with a lot of controls and some of the screens will act just like they did for Atlantis. But there is one really cool thing you can do when you're in there, and it's free. It's part of the tour. It's the Space Shuttle launch experience. It's a simulation designed to replicate the shuttle liftoff. It takes about 8 minutes, and it mimics the shuttle liftoff. If you can see here, there's a few rows of chairs where people come in and sit down. And this is a video. Even though videos were not allowed, somebody took video. I don't know who took the video. I won't own up to it, but somebody in this room took this video. The show is about 30. It's about 10 minutes, but this video is about 30 seconds. That's all I could take before I got yelled at that I was to put my phone down. What happens is obviously like you guys are sitting horizontal. It starts out with you getting in there horizontal, but obviously the shuttle takes off vertically. So the first thing it does is it takes all the entire room and puts it in launch mode, which is vertical. And if you see here, it mimics, like we're sitting right at the tower, and it'll count down a lot of the instrumentation, and there'll be an astronaut here that'll basically speak a little bit about what's going on. 30-second video. Two important things to keep an ear out for. Something important happens at about 15 seconds, about halfway through. Excuse that there might be a little cursing at 15 seconds, because what happened was I went on with a drink, and I'm telling the person where can I put the drink? I said, put it between your legs. Well, you can just imagine what happens, and then obviously I said, oh, you listen out for it around 16 seconds, and then at the end of the video, the person managing the simulation is telling me to put my phone away. So let's play. So I obviously this is what happened after I got out of the simulator. They were looking for me, so wasn't a good experience taking the video. But I mentioned they have a meet an astronaut. So when we were there in December, we had walked in and we had there's a crowd today. There were a lot of people walking around us, and there were people looking up at the signs at the activities for the day. And a couple of people, as we were passing by, said, "Oh, look, Tom Jones is here. I wonder if he's going to sing." Well, gave him a strange look. This is not Tom Jones the singer. This is Tom Jones the astronaut. So they're all very nice guys. We've met a lot of the space shuttle astronauts. And he happened to write a book about space shuttle stories. But they're very nice. They'll take a picture with you. They'll autograph whatever you have, or you can purchase something for them to autograph. So they're all very nice guys. He's actually standing behind the transport that takes them from their location to the actual launch pad. And then on the way out, I'll just cover this real quick. They have a building with Heroes and Legends That's the Astronaut Hall of Fame. It was founded by Mercury 7 astronauts, and if you see on the next picture, there's a lot of exhibits in there, and a lot of things to get into and try and see how the Mercury astronauts work. On your way out, again, I mentioned the world's largest space shop. Here showing a bunch of it's got all the mission patches for Apollo and all the shuttle missions. So it's really cool. It's got a lot of things you can buy. I highly recommend it. It's really great. It's on the way out. So that's the end, or possibly the beginning for Artemis, right? Going to the moon and beyond. So just some acknowledgments. By the way, they tell you in NASA not to feed the animals, and some people get carried away here a little bit. But thank you to my co-presenter.
Mary.
Yeah. Thank you, my co-presenter. Thank you to Mary for allowing us to present today. Certainly, Kennedy Space Center for having some great things to do. And these are some of the acknowledgments on some of the slides and pictures that were not ours. So those are the acknowledgments, and that's pretty much it.